Hey folks, this is Alan from ImportantFun.com talking to you this week about skill challenges, which was a system put in place in the 4th edition of Dungeons and Dragons. And since then, it's kind of had a little bit of a resurgence. Everyone from Matt Mercer to Matt Colville and people not named Matt have been talking about using this in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. And it's something that I'm going to take a hot take on and say I never really liked. So what is a skill challenge and what is 4th edition? So it's been real popular in the past 10 years or so to kind of dunk on 4th edition. It was kind of, maybe not seen as a failure, but not seen as exactly a step forward for the game. And I don't 100% agree with that. I'm glad that actually now we're now that we've gotten past the initial shock of 4th edition, people are starting to come around to it again in a big way. But skill challenges I'm not so sold on. But a skill challenge was basically 4th edition's answer to balance out combat. They had a very systematic combat-focused game, and my theory at least is that they wanted to have a non-combat system that also provided some rules framework, make it really gamified, and this was their attempt at doing that. And so I went into the 4th edition rulebooks and tried to see what I could find as far as a definition for a skill challenge. And the first thing it says about it is when characters make a series of skill checks in response to a series of changing conditions, with success or failure being uncertain, they're in a skill challenge. That's some pretty bad writing, in my opinion. It doesn't really say anything, does it? Goes on a little later. This kind of tells a little more about how you do a skill challenge, but still not what it is. To deal with the skill challenge, the player characters must make skill checks to accumulate a number of successful skill uses before they rack up too many failures and end the encounter. This is hard to define because it is such a broad system, right? They're trying to do something where the combat rules are used for, a very specific situation you are fighting, and the skill challenge was kind of set up as a possibility for something to use when anything else happens. Specifically, if you're in a system where the GM basically says, okay, you need to have 5 successes before you get 3 failures, and that's kind of it. This is kind of a weird thing because I actually think they needed to be a little more specific, which I rarely say about Dungeons and Dragons designers, that they need to be more specific. Usually they hone in too much on, every little possible edge case. But why I don't like this is because what the system sort of does is just, and maybe other dungeon masters have found better ways to run this, I haven't seen it explained very well, but that it dumps this information into the player's laps of hey, now we're in a skill challenge, come up with some skills to use. And in my experience running these, I've done skill challenges. I've run 4th edition a little bit, I've tried using this in 5th edition, and it's just a little too freeform for D&D, I find, where players are kind of stop and be I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. Dungeons and Dragons is predicated on the dungeon master saying, you're in such and such situation, what do you do? And then the players say something, we resolve it, and then the GM says, okay, here's the new situation, what do you do? Skill challenges is you're in this situation, what do you do? And it has to be a skill check type thing. It's all very weird. I like the idea of non-combat encounters, and especially ones that are linked together, but I think it can be done a little more clearly, and I don't think it needs to be tied to skills or even ability checks. So what I prefer, and I've mentioned obstacles before, but putting clear obstacles in front of the players. And sometimes one big obstacle can be made up of several smaller ones. And maybe these will be solved by skills, maybe they'll be solved by spells or other special abilities the characters have, but I like leaving it open and saying there are X number of obstacles that need to be overcome, rather than the skill challenge system of just saying, oh, you need X successes. Like, why is it 5 successes versus 7 successes? It doesn't click for me. So for example, this is something that I did run as a skill challenge in a game and didn't really like it, but I did the classic sort of defeat the master of the castle, but oops, his magic was kind of holding everything together. So the players were in this castle that was up on sort of top of a mountain, that they had crossed this narrow little bridge to get up there. So when they killed this Ifriti, the first thing that happened is the castle starts to collapse around them. So the first obstacle is, how are we going to get out of the castle? And this could be a skill check, this could be casting Expeditious Retreat, this could be casting Fly, all sorts of stuff. I don't want to tie it to just one aspect of the game. Once they got out of the castle, then they had to deal with getting down from the mountain because the bridge had collapsed. And again, they could be like, oh, well, let's climb down, and be like, all right, well, we're going to make some athletic skill checks. Or maybe they had cast Fly in the first place and be like, well, that solves this kind of as well. But, they would have to find something specific to that obstacle, not just coming up with something on their own like, well, maybe this is a problem and we'll use this to solve it. And then finally, this mountain was surrounded by sort of like this town/mine with a lot of followers of this Ifriti. And so I asked, how are they going to get through this, without being hassled, detained. And so in a skill challenge, they might say, oh, we'll do deception checks or stealth checks or something like that, but I don't like framing it in that sort of system. Maybe they just want to fight their way through. I think that if your players do want to solve everything with combat, you should definitely let them. And so that's basically my skill challenge thoughts in a nutshell, which is that let the players come up with how they want to solve your obstacles. Don't think of things in terms of 5 successes, 7 successes. Think of obstacles to put in your players' way, and then let them come up with the ways that they want to solve it. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any thoughts on this, want to chat with me, you can follow me on Twitter @ImportantFun. And if you like this, want to read more of kind of my thoughts and information, get some free adventures for Dungeons & Dragons, check out ImportantFun.com. Thanks again. Have a good one.